are you talking about the UV inhibitors in epoxy?
Yeah, we were chatting a bit about it here. I see you just came on. And this piece that I got here is a piece of Manitoba maple and had some beautiful color to it, and it's fresh turns. It came down this year and I turned it to this, and I just finished it last night. It was the last piece that last thing, step that I did on it, and I've got about 5 or 6 coats of uh, clear epoxy to finish this, and I've come up with a new method of putting the color or trying to maintain the color. Basically, what I do is flood coat it raw wood, flood coat it, seal it, and then the next coat that I put on, I add the color and I try to match what color is in the wood. So I basically hand brushing it and feathering it out to make it look like it is. And it's, in some pieces I've got an awful lot of red, some a little bit less, but get some light right here. You can see. But anyway, I coat it again over and over as many times as I require to give it a good seal over top of it. But the color is actually colored UV.
Lancaster Woodturners Weekly Coffee Hour for December what is it, the 5th? 8th? I lost track of the dates even. Yeah, it's the 5th. Yeah. Welcome aboard, everybody. I'm seeing 42 on screen, and they keep on clicking in. Lancaster Woodturners club meeting was Tuesday night. I unfortunately was not able to be there. I'm in New York with family stuff. But I understand we elected a new president of the club, and I believe that's Ziegler, who's on screen. Is he? Ziegler here? Yes, there he is.
He's there, just not paying attention.
Yeah, and we got a new vice president too, which would be Bill Heaps. And the treasurer, Rick Atkins, gave us the information for 2025 dues, which I have put in the chat, and I can put it in again if it's disappeared. In fact, I will do that right now real quick because I kept it in no, I can't do it. It gives me hiccups. There's got to be a way to do it. Well, I'll do it before the hour's over. I'll get it back in the chat for anybody who missed it. This upcoming Saturday, there's a special open shop at our space in New Holland. There's an awful lot of log rounds have turned up there that could be bowl blanks if they were correctly processed. But right now they're log rounds. We got a lot of new members who would like some bowl blanks, but they don't have the tech or the skill or anything or the equipment to process them. So there's going to be a work bee there this Saturday to turn all whatever's in there that can be salvaged into good wood for turning, and to get rid of what's there that is not good wood for turning and never will be. And those of you who like rotten wood and cracked up wood might like to check in on that as well, because some of that's going to be going away. And then the following Saturday, a week from this Saturday, is our regular monthly open shop. So lots of Lancaster Club activities right now. Anybody else got any announcements from clubs in the area or anywhere else you'd like to make?
Excuse me, John, what time is that Saturday?
9 in the morning.
9 in the morning. Okay.
9 till maybe noon. Yeah.
Yeah. Are some people who don't know how to create bowl blanks going to be there so we could share some insights?
Totally.
Oh, great.
Barry's leading the party, and Barry's very good at it. And I will be taxed a bit by the capacity of the bandsaw that's there, but I think some chainsaws are showing up as well. And there will be some new people there. I hope some new turners who would like some bowl blanks. Yes, if you are new and you would like to learn how to process log rounds into blanks, this would be a great chance. Good chance to hang out and participate in a very worthwhile project for the club.
Yeah, no, I was thinking about coming out and maybe helping out guiding some of the newer turners.
That'd be good.
I certainly made plenty of bowl blanks.
Yeah. Well, that's what goes on at our Saturday open shop as well, the second Saturday of the month. It's a dozen or 15 people typically show up, and it's purely a chance to stand around and yak and drink coffee. There's 6 or so lays. We get new people there who ask questions. We get demos. Let me show you how you do that. Let me ask you how I would do that. It's generally very informal and quite a lot of fun. And often ends with at least some of the people going to Gracie's on West Main for bacon. We happen to be blessed in Leola, PA, which is between Lancaster and New Holland, with a restaurant that specializes in bacon.
Oh,
So that's because we live in Lancaster County where they grow this stuff. Anyway, who's got some stuff to show today? I know Dennis has some more on drilling. And I see Bert and Don Smith and anybody else raise hand and we'll get to you. Let's begin with you, Dennis, since you got in touch with me early on. Is that all right with you?
That's fine. Let me get my,
All right.
before I'm going to change the view to the speaker's view. What I want to show everybody for a minute before I get into the 6-minute clip is the concept of a drawbar. If you look at most chucks, I lost my picture, John. Could you highlight me, please, or do something so I can see myself?
We see.
There we go. All right, so this is a normal Jacobs chuck, but if you look at the back on the tang, you see that hole versus this tang, which is just
higher. You're not on camera. Hold them up a little higher. Yeah. Okay. Now we see. Yes.
See them?
Yep.
The secret to the threaded chuck or tang is that now I can come in with a 3/8 inch rod.
Yep.
So now this goes in the tailstock, and I go through the tailstock with the bar, and you basically lock it in place. So, and when you do that, what happens is that this will never come out because it is in fact bolted right into your tailstock. That's what's called a drawbar. There's more about it.
Yes, you can't advance the quill then, can you?
Not with that one, but if you go look, at my video, there's a spring-loaded variation of that, which allows you to still turn the handle. When it's locked in like that, you're going to push the tailstock in, clear, push, clear, push, clear.
Could you not put it in the headstock and then mount your chuck on the tailstock?
That's cheating.
What? Say that again, John.
Could you not put the drawbar and the chuck in the headstock and mount the work tailstock?
You could, but how are you going to hold the wood on the tailstock?
Pardon?
How are you going to hold the wood on the tailstock?
They sold me a unit at the Mid-Atlantic that I could attach a chuck to my tailstock.
I have a taper, Morris taper with a 1/8 on well, it's the right size of taper, so it's actually a solid taper. I can put my chuck onto the tailstock with no problem if I want to reverse it. But I would never have done that without Jim's suggestion, or John's suggestion actually.
Yeah, I don't think I would ever do it either. I did it once. I didn't like it really.
Well, you still have to retract the drill bit, whether you got it in the headstock or the tailstock. So you're pulling, it's a negative pressure on the Morris taper.
Right. That's
I
right.
really like the wooden handle on that. That's a nice idea, Dennis.
Well,
I think you're right.
Beats the heck out of that daggone wing nut I got on mine.
but
I
it's
should have
easy.
kept quiet. He had it right. Put it in the tailstock.
Mine doesn't. I use that, but my quill sticks out of my DVR enough that I don't run into it. You know, I don't. When I draw it in, I can crank it right in. It's not a problem. Yeah.
The question is, if you have your drawbar in,
Yes.
can you pull the Jacobs chuck out of the socket?
No. What I'm saying is I can put the drawbar in and tighten it up to the quill, which is the threaded part is sticking out of my tailstock to the right-hand side.
You don't have a self-ejecting quill on that model lathe, is that right, Jim?
No, I do not.
Yeah, so it's one threaded rod that moves, Dennis. It's not like most modern lathes.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I have a small one that has a self-eject. You got to crank it all the way out to make it eject. That's stupid.
Okay.
Mr. Bowman has always been at the far end of the bell-shaped curve.
Which
And
end?
I will, let's get back to drilling, folks. Let me
You
run.
Go for it. Go for it, Dennis. I'm sorry I derailed you.
Here we go. Let's see if I can get this to work.
So I'd like to introduce you.
How's
to
it now?
what's called
That work?
a gun drill. It looks like this. And what we have is we have the bit itself, which is long. It's actually comes from the metalworking industry. It's designed to drill out the bore of a firearm. Then we have it mounted into a shop-made aluminum handle. It could just as easily be wood. It's epoxied in with a couple of set screws. Very important is that you have a control valve down here. Now, the way this works is there's a couple of parts here that are really important. So let me bring you in as close as I can get you. What we have is a long, thin piece of metal that has had a channel right here in it. And at the very tip, what we can see there is a hole that runs the length of the bit. And the way this would work is that drilling fluid would come out of this hole and then be returned after it cools the bit, returned up this channel in the gun drill. Now, when we do it in woodworking, it works the same principle. But the difference is instead of using a drilling fluid, what we're going to use is air. Now I'm going to take the air connection, put it on here, make the connection. Now it's very important that you have this control where you can keep the amount of air that's coming through under control. If you get too much, it's going to cause you kind of problems. But here we go. Now, the way it works is same as we had shown before. We're going to start by going to the center of our piece and making sure that we have a center. Once that's established, I actually don't need that. And so we'll move it back out of the way. Turn our lathe, get it up to drilling speed, and simply come in, put the point in the hole, put the point in the hole, turn on a little bit of air, and simply push. And what happens is the air clears the wood, so we don't have to back it back out. Now, what you do have to be careful with is that if you have the air full on as you drill, and you have your head anywhere around, like this, what you're going to do is you're going to end up with a blast of those shavings come back and hit you in the face. Not a very good thing. But the key point about the gun drill is that the air serves to continually clear the shavings so that you're not forced to have to clear shavings. In effect, you can just put it up to the wood and right all the way down. And again, you're going to mark how far you're going to go down. But it makes a much more efficient way to drill a pilot hole in a piece of wood. One drilling technique used to frustrate me is to try to put hooks in Christmas ornaments. You know, if you didn't pre-drill it, what would happen? Of course, the finial would crack and you'd wasted the whole effort. So I went out and I got some small drill bits like this, and I epoxied them into a handle so I could just go zip, be done with it. Well, that works pretty well, except for one thing. When you buy drill bits this small at the hardware store, they're hard to find. You got to go over the metalworking bit area or metalworking area and get introduced to drill sizes that are numbers and letters. I mean, it's just a different world for me anyway. But never buy one. Always buy a dozen or 2 dozen because they break really easily. And, you know, you go to all the trouble to get them in a nice wood handle, and the next thing you know, they break off and they're done for. It's got to be a better way to do this. So it works really fine on a larger diameter bit, little handle. So if you got to drill some smaller holes, that's just a quick, easy way to do it. No drill chuck involved. But I got tired of breaking those small ones when I'm making Christmas ornaments, so I figured there had to be a better way. what I finally came up with is a very expensive solution, only because there's a lot of trial and error to it, but it's an X-Acto knife. And what I've done is I've used the collet of the X-Acto knife to hold in place a small bit of wire that's the correct size to pre-drill for my eye hooks on my Christmas ornaments. And really, you know, you just take it, you get some stuck in there, and you clip them off with a pair of electrical clippers. And it's kind of sharp, it's enough, but when you go to drill, all you have to do is go, boom, done. Now, the nice thing about it is that if by chance it gets bent, all you have to do is straighten it back out. If it finally does break after too many bends because of metal fatigue, you just pull out another length and keep going. So the thought is, I'm going to use a thin wire that's properly sized for my eye hooks on Christmas ornaments. I'm going to hold that wire in a small collet. Now, there's lots of different things that have small collets to it. I found the X-Acto knives work really well, but so does the small rotary bit on my Fordham, the small one. But this is a lot less expensive than the other one. I can replace that without any problem. So anyway, that introduces you to the concept of drilling small holes.
All right, I'm going to stop it there. And any questions, we'll be more than happy to try to respond to them.
I wonder why you would use the gun drill, for example, instead of just boring straight in with a gouge.
But typically, yeah, certainly you can bore in with a gouge, but that begins to be more problematic the deeper you go. And gun drills and aircraft bits are typically used to set the depth of, like in a bowl blank. And so you're going in 6 or 8 inches, and to do that with a gouge, certainly you could, John, but that's not been my habit. Having said that, there's always different ways to skin a animal. Okay, you know, so
I'd be inclined to go in as far as was comfortable with the gouge, turn down to that depth, and then go in again if I needed to go deeper.
The problem with that is you don't have that dead center line hole that's so important that you have when you start to drill. The gouge doesn't leave that crispness at the very end where you want that point to be able to find the center line.
That's true.
Okay, so you're argumentative this morning, John.
Say what?
You're
yes,
argumentative this morning.
Anybody else on this? Questions?
Yeah, I think those small drill bits I wouldn't find too helpful for a lot of holes, but I think it'd be especially helpful if you're doing a through hole for a lamp. I think that's when they really come into play, when you're drilling long holes more straight. When it comes to small drill bits, I find a pin vise to be handy because the handle spins, so you can hold it in your hand and you can actually drill with it. It'll hold different size bits, and they can be stored, and they're very inexpensive. You can get them on Amazon for $8 or $9, I think.
Hold
Mike,
it up,
how small will those?
Hold it up again so we can see it. We're not seeing it. We are seeing. There we go. Thank you.
You have him spotlight. You have Dennis spotlighted, John. You got to get rid of that.
Oh, that's my problem. Okay, I got it. Well, you got co-host controls. You can fix it.
Okay.
There we go. Okay, I like to be in multi-view here so I can see the talkers. Yeah.
So it's got a little collet. It'll hold different sizes. This is a very, very tiny bit I picked up at the wood show. I got a package of them, and I've been using them for more than 10 years.
Okay. Mike, if you want to go smaller than that, if you want to go down to a 64th,
yeah,
you know, think about an eye screw for a Christmas ornament.
Yeah.
How do you pre-drill that small of a hole?
Yeah, well, that's a good point. This one fits these very tiny screw eyes that I use, but I did purchase some that were even tinier, and this was too big for it. I got rid of them because I didn't want to didn't want to go to the trouble to try to find that tiny little drill bit. So I sold the package of screw eyes, of 600 tiny screw eyes. But I use some pretty small ones, and this works just fine. This actually gives some tension when you screw them in and holes.
I went on Amazon and I found a very inexpensive pin vise, and the bit sets that come with it. I think it cost me $16 for the pin vise and the bits, and the bits go down to 0.3 millimeter.
Whoa.
Okay,
Yeah.
that'd be
So
good.
you break a lot, but you also learn how to hold the drill bit with a pin vise on a lathe, because 3 horsepower will just spin the bit off.
Well, the other nice thing about the wire and the X-Acto knife is that when I get metal fatigue and the wire breaks, I just pull out a little bit more and keep going.
Yeah.
So I don't really have to change wires very often at all. With the bits, I kept breaking them. Now I would use a broken bit, but they break a lot more easily, in my experience, than the just the wire.
Dennis, have you looked into anything from the jeweler's point of view, jeweler's drills or jeweler's tools for that sort of handles that you're looking for?
Oh, once I found the X-Acto knife, I mean,
that's fair enough. I just curious because I was just curious because they're going down to really fine diameters in the jewelry business, and that's the sort of thing. So anyway, thank you.
Guys, I'll tell you, below 1/8 of an inch. My dad was a carpenter, and they don't use a drill bit below 1/8 of an inch. Use a piece of piano wire held in a vice grip.
Yeah, same
Does
thing.
2 things. It drills the thing, but it doesn't remove wood. It's a much stronger socket.
Oh,
Huh. All right.
that's a good point, Dix.
The old woodworkers with their egg beater drill used to use a piece of wire. And if you go into like 1/4 inch or something, you put a square end on it, like kind of like the end of a nail, but just drive a square end on it. You can also put that in a drill motor. You can drill through an 18-inch beam and run a wire through it. It gets hot, don't touch it. But anyway, you'll have a hole through a beam.
I have a pin drill, but I don't let the lathe run. I just have the lathe static, and I use some very fine eyelets I got from Lee Valley. In the end, I've been using a safety pin. For years.
The drill?
And for the tiny eyelets that I have, it works perfectly. Just goes in.
The same safety pin, or do you change it every now and again?
No, this one's been on my magnet for years.
All right.
Is that the one from your daughter's diapers years ago?
Wherever, yeah, it could be. She's 52, so. Yeah.
All right. Anybody else on this?
I found with the wire, if you cut it with a pair of diagonal pliers, it gives you sort of like a chisel edge that's square and sharp. And yeah, you can do a 64th of an inch, no trouble at all.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else on this? Okay. Thank you very much, Dennis. Does this conclude your material on boring on the lathe?
Pretty much all of it, though. I got to be after interaction with you and Jim. I've decided that really I need to redo the whole thing. So
yes.
So that's my next project. It's been long enough since I got so tired of all of the errors in the production of it. So we're going to start it all over again and see if I can get it a little bit better quality. So
I knew you'd come to this excellent decision.
I have one other hole drilling tip. When you're making small things and drilling holes in wood sideways for gnome noses or arms or something, frequently, we'll turn that little pin or use a bamboo skewer and it won't quite fit. And I found this 1/8 inch tip plumber's reamer is so invaluable for increasing the size of small holes all the way up to 5/8 or a half, depending on your plumber's reamer, to make those minor adjustments.
Yep. Good point.
Hey, let me ask you a question. I did not cover drilling into a round surface from the side.
Another topic.
Should I have included that topic?
Yeah, it's a good topic.
And that's where anytime you do a starter hole using a bird cage awl like this, it has those 4 sides, it'll actually drill a hole. And I always make a starter hole anytime I'm drilling on a wood turning project.
Gentlemen, I have a question. What the grain of the wood, and Dennis, maybe you have addressed that or need to address it. The grain of the wood can fight you like crazy when you're trying to find the center, a very precise little center. The grain just, the soft or the hard just wants to pull the drill either way. You
When was the last time you sharpened your drill bit? Yeah. And have you sharpened each wing the same number of strokes?
Maybe
I remember that every time I grab my diamond, I go, Dennis says you got to do the same stroke in each side. And I think I do, but in the past I may not have, so it may be screwed up.
Get a new drill bit, no problem.
Can I offer a quick tip?
Mm-hmm.
Can I offer a quick tip for making that center?
Sure.
Yes.
Pop a center point in your tailstock and draw up the tailstock just to touch the top of your end grain. Makes a perfect center every time.
There you go.
Drill bit sits in that socket and goes right in.
Well, yeah, you could actually use a drive center in your tailstock and create the dimple, which is kind of what you're saying, right?
You don't even need it. Doesn't even have to be a drive center. It can.
Yeah, the cone center. Yeah.
Anything.
Yeah. If it can prick your elbow so well, it should be able to prick wood pretty good. So.
Got it.
I went and bought a set of these short. They made the metal machines, little short, stubby center. I don't know what they called them, centering bits or something.
A pilot drill. I was just going to say, I would include a pilot drill. It's phenomenal. Everybody should have one.
I've had my best luck with them. Yeah.
Why don't you use the point of your skew just to mark the center?
Yep.
I agree with you.
Don,
why do our tools, Don?
I'd have to pick up my skew then. I never pick my skew up.
I'm going to pull the plug on this now. It's we've used up half the hour, and I got about 4 or 5 hands up here that I'd like to hear from. If that's all right with you guys. If anybody has a major topic on drilling to bring back another week, I'd be happy to have it. But right now, I'd like to hear from Michael Zehr, because we never hear from Michael Zehr. Michael, I'm going to put the spotlight on you.
More of a question. This is my first attempt at doing carving, and I ruined about 6 of these stems trying to use my rotozip to do the rough routing out of there. So those of you that are more experienced than I, how do you do that kind of a carving?
Anybody?
Can I come in here?
Do.
Where it fits into the globe on the top. If you were to drill, first of all, your center through from the top to where you want to do it, mark up your barley twist, and then cut your barley twist into that hole.
I did. The problem was that the rotozip, maybe it was too big of a tool. It tended to want to walk when I was doing the carving the lines.
Well, what you do is, if you when you've marked up your barley twist to get it accurate, make a saw cut down into it, and then with a round micro file out till the point that you come through to the thickness of your barley twist and then sand it very carefully.
In
I
other
do
words,
quite a few of them.
the rotary zip is too coarse a weapon for what you're trying to do.
So what would you use for that?
Right, he's saying small files.
A small micro file.
Yeah.
Or you could use a micromotor if you want to do it by power carving, but something that holds smaller bits. They're typically a 16th inch collet or 3/32 collet, and they spin very fast, but they're less torquey, so they're not quite as aggressive. You can do more detailed work like that. I agree with John. The rotozip is just too coarse a tool.
I use them all the time.
Which do you use all the time, Don?
I use the micro files for doing
Microfile.
candy twists, whether a double or triple or quadruple. And if I want to, I've even made them where I've gone through the center and I've actually put a piece of wood through the middle, a different like ebony against ash. And then I've taken that barley twist down to that ebony, still using a microfile, very small 1/4 inch, 1/8 inch microfile. But not until I made a saw cut down the center of my markings out for that barley twist.
Did that help you, Michael?
If you want to really get into it, if you can get hold of a book by Stuart Mortimer, and on twists, you will explain all the marking up and how to make any barley twist you want, from globes down to stems. It's Stuart Mortimer.
I believe I have that book, and if I can find it, I'll bring it to the club space on the open shop in 2 Saturdays from now.
It will really help you.
Michael, maybe the other thing is to talk to Barry Price, our jig maker. He might even have a jig ready for you to do that.
Probably does.
Seriously, yeah, he's made jigs for routing. So
okay, that's a lovely looking ornament, by the way, Michael.
Yes, it's a beautiful ornament. I like the Scottish knot in it.
Yeah, I do too.
I think if I was to do that, I would just make the barley twist a separate piece completely, so I didn't ruin the rest of it whenever I was practicing on this. So, and then you could just plug in, just put a tenon on each side and plug it into the rest of the ornament.
This is a 10 into there.
Yeah. Well, I would just do the barley twist section. Just make that small section.
Yeah.
Okay.
And tenon that in. I think he's right. I think that's probably where I'd go with that too. You'd have fewer fails, or fewer damage fails anyway. Okay. Any more on that? If not, I'm seeing 54 on screen now, which is a good, nice number, and I'm going to hand it over to Sherry. Sherry Wilets, what would you like to do?
Hi, I'm going to try a screen share here, see if I can get that right. You saw the little mushrooms that I made some time ago, and the theory behind them is I was using the top of the mushroom as a little canvas to practice those textures. And so once I felt confident that I had the texture down, I made some platters using that texture. So there's an example of one that I made. So I used the pyrography pen with a custom-made tip in it after I turned the piece, and then these little squiggly things, those are just basically branded in with a super, like a hot pyrography tip, and then the carving tool to carve those little widgets in there. And I'd colored the whole thing black, and this shiny stuff in the middle is just that interference paint.
Now, is the center of that a dish or a dome?
A dish. And so I made 3 of them, and each one I made a little bit different, trying to decide what I like better. And I'm not sure I've completely landed on what I like better. The back of it is just very plain, so I wouldn't do that again because I sometimes need to remount them on the lathe, and clearly that does not help when there's no center or anything. The next one I made was a brown one, and I put little pieces of leather in there just to add a different texture and a little bit of contrast, I guess, very slight contrast. And this one is not really colored in the center. It's just the burning colored the wood. That's the back of it. Again, I was practicing my OGs, and then this one's my personal favorite. Again, same idea. Did not texture the rim. Did the carving and burning in the center, and yeah, and the back of that one. So,
what makes that your personal favorite?
Well, a number of things. I like this rounded over rim better than the, so for example, on this one it's very fine, and on this one it's not as, yeah, it's not as prominent. And on this one the wood was thicker, and so this part is proud of the rim. And on these two, this part is level with the rim. And so I think the effect is actually nicer when that part is proud.
Do you have a profile of that one that we could see from the side, or you just have from top or bottom view?
Yeah, I didn't think that far ahead, so
I would love to see the profile, because that would be helpful. I have another question. Did you say you painted the whole thing black after you made the little moons or whatever you call them?
Yes.
And then you didn't sand or anything, is that right? You just put what you call interference paint, which I've never heard of.
Yes. So it's a weird paint. It looks white, but if you put it on a black background, I don't know, it's got some weird components in it that makes it look kind of metal-ish. So it was very, very easy to use, and you can buy it almost anywhere. And it's just called interference paint. And so you need to start with a dark background. And so you can, I've done some experiments lately doing either like black dye, so an alcohol-based dye, versus acrylic gesso, versus acrylic artist's paint, etc. Trying to determine which black background is easiest to use and get I was not looking for shiny. And anyways, I think on this one, I actually think I used my airbrush. I'm trying to learn how to use that. So I think I used that for the kind of the first time. And again, there's no real finessing required. You can just slop black all over it and let it dry. And then the finessing comes in just carefully trying not to get the interference paint on the bits that you don't want it on.
Sherry, what wood is that?
You know what? Strangely enough, I wouldn't do this again. It's walnut. And I know it's just morally wrong to paint walnut.
Oh,
but
good. You can paint walnut. It's all right.
But I had a different plan for the first one. I usually do things in 2 or 3s because I usually mess up at least a couple of times. And so I learn with each one. And I messed up and so I ended up painting everything.
A
Can
little
I see?
more.
What are the?
Is it,
what-
is,
yeah,
Sorry?
Go ahead.
is the interference paint acrylic?
Yes, yes, it is.
Thank you. Found it on Amazon.
Yeah, and
Look.
it's really thick like toothpaste, so and it just does not look like anything fancy, but when you put it on over the black. So I'd recommend I just make a few little test boards and paint the test board all black, and then just fiddle with the interference paint. Sometimes because it's acrylic, you might want to add a little bit of water to make it thinner, but in this case, I did not do that because I didn't want to get it to be runny and get down into those little holes or bubbles that I carved.
What is the carving bit that you're using
or something?
It is a cross cutter, also known as an eye cutter, which I'd mentioned before. It's what the like the bird carvers and such often use for carving the eye of their birds, and it just goes in a rotary tool.
Oh no,
Sherry, is there-
meant the interference paint.
Sorry?
The interference paint, how do you apply that? Is that with a brush or?
Yes, yeah, so I just used a stiff brush and kind of held the brush on, sideways so that I didn't get it. But I mean, you can even like put on a tight rubber glove and dab some of that interference paint on your fingers, and then rub your fingers together so that you don't get any little gobs there, and you can rub it on. You get different effects. But a stiff, short, bristled artist's brush works well. At least that's what I used on this piece. I'm sure there's many other techniques.
Yeah, very nice.
Is the iridescent paint and interference paint, are they basically the same thing?
I believe so. Probably just a different.
I don't think so.
I've used the Joe Sanja iridescent, and like you say, it's got a white background coming out, but you have to put it on black for it to, when it dries, for the color.
The principle is similar, but chemically, I don't know. I do have some of the Josanya as well, but it is much thinner than the art. I think it was Golden Artists acrylic, the high body acrylic that I used, and again on that blue piece, and the paint itself, it's as thick as, or maybe thicker than toothpaste.
Carrie, the little bowl in the middle, did you have that painted black? And I assume that's the interference paint but you had it black first.
The whole thing was black first.
Okay. Boy, that blue really covered up the black. So,
Carrie, I struggle with walnut sometimes because there's a slight porosity on the surface of it. Did you find that interfered with the painting process, or was it like?
Well, it did, and that was part of my learning, is that I learned that it's helpful again to, I guess I've learned, if I'm going to paint the surface of something that I'm doing, never apply paint directly on the raw wood. Should always prime it in some way first, put some sort of a sealant on it. And I've looked, and there's clear gesso, white gesso, black gesso. I'm finding that the gesso, it's inexpensive. It works very well, and it doesn't seem to raise the grain. But if you go right to the black on different woods, it raises the grain a little bit, and now the whole texture of your piece it feels like it's got, I don't know, just kind of little nubbins all over it, and then you end up having to sand, and it's a pain.
you mentioned 3 blacks that you were experimenting. Which was your final choice?
I would well, unless I was using an airbrush, I would definitively go with the gesso. It's Gesso, and that's apparently it's what many artists use to prime their canvases. I don't know much about that, but I've found, again, it's inexpensive, it goes on well, and it gives you a complete matte finish. So if you're not looking for shine, it's and it's easy to work with.
Yeah, be sure you get the sandable gesso. There's a second variety that doesn't sand.
And yeah, so generally I kind of slopped it on, and then I do a very, very light sanding to just kind of, it does raise the grain very slightly. It's easy, just use an 800 sandpaper to just basically deburr it and then add another coat, and it turns out very well. Or alternatively, my second favorite would be just, you know, the airbrush. The India ink, it just doesn't get deep enough. And you can see more wood grain, and it ends up looking kind of spotty, and yeah, it didn't have a professional look when it was finished. And the black dyes work very well, but now that's an alcohol-based thing, so it kind of depends on how you're going to finish the whole work piece and whether you want to mix having alcohol-based colors with acrylic-based colors, and then how do you know, what's your final finish, and making everything compatible. It gets to be a bit of a gong show. So.
Well, I'm noticing that you said you felt the walnut was kind of precious, I think, right? Walnut doesn't grow around you.
We don't get much for hardwoods in Alberta at all. And then, and dark woods, you know, I don't know, they're very highly prized, at least in my opinion. So it didn't feel right to go and put paint all over it.
But here we are in Pennsylvania, we get walnut and forest cherry are practically weed trees. Walnut is easy to get, lots of it.
Wow, yeah, no,
it's the cheapest material I have because I've been able to buy it for, you know, $30 for a big pile of it at the local junk auction.
Well, you could take out a second mortgage to buy it here, so.
Yeah. There you go, different places, different situations.
Another idea I got out of one of the wood magazines. If you have walnuts that have been kiln dried, it tends to be flatter or grayer than if you air dry walnut. At least that's been my experience here. The guys in the magazine said, try dyeing that with an alcohol-based orange. And they say it really does phenomenal. I tried it very little. I want to try it some more, but that's, if you have walnut and want to make it perk up, they recommended dyeing it. So there's an idea.
Good to know. Thanks.
Okay. Great work, Sherry. Thank you very much for sharing it.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Brian Maguire, you had your hand up and then it went down. We haven't heard from you in a bit either. You got something you want to show us? Brian Maguire?
Yeah, I'm here. Sure. I had to unmute myself first. Yeah. If you can spotlight me, I have a couple things I can hold up.
You got it.
Thanks. It's been, you know, a lot of ornament making. 'Tis the season. And I did a presentation a few weeks ago on my birdhouse ornaments. But at Buck's Woodturners, we have something called hands-on workshops. I think I mentioned that before. And members bring folks into their own shops or studios and help people learn how to make something that we already know how to make, and they leave with a completed project. So in addition to hosting hands-on workshops, I've actually taken a few. And one of our members, actually a board member as well, Steve Hirleman, teaches how to make ornaments with sea urchins. So I've been working on them. That's going to be a feature of my gift giving this year, is sea urchin ornaments.
Bottom connected with wood through the sea urchin?
Yes, it's not absolutely necessary, but it's highly recommended. There's a small dowel in between the top and the bottom finial. And the sea urchins, of course, are hollow, and you can fill them with foam to reinforce them if you wish, but then you have to drill through that as well anyway. I choose not to fill them with the foam. And then there's I'm actually experimenting. The typical way that I was shown to make these is with the large hole in the sea urchin at the top and the small hole in the sea urchin at the bottom. That's how this one that was done with Purple Heart was made. The one thing I find is that, especially when you're trying to accommodate the knobs on the sea urchins, that you wind up with a fatter bottom finial, which I really wasn't what I was going for. So this other one that I made with canary wood, I tried inverting the sea urchin, and it just happened that I lucked out with the location of the nubs at the top, that I was able to make a fairly slender cap, and having the small hole at the bottom actually gave me an opportunity, or the small hole at the top allowed me to make that very slender, and having a large hole at the bottom, I still didn't seem to have to make quite as large a bottom cap, because this particular sea urchin didn't have as many knobs in the right place, or in the wrong place, I should say. That's it.
That's it from you. Okay. Comments, questions for Brian?
Another way to reinforce the inside of those without going to foam is just coat it with something like Elmer's glue, and that will help reinforce it.
Well, yeah, I used Mod Podge.
Yeah, that works good too.
Yeah.
Same stuff. Yeah.
Have you tried sanding off a little bit of the knobs that are in your way on the bottom? I did that a couple times and it was reasonably successful. You couldn't see in the end ornament.
Right. Yeah, I do that. I have a small handheld weller tool that's with a rechargeable battery that I use for that. One of the tricks I use is to only sand off the inside of them and try to keep the exteriors exposed, and taper the edge of the tenon that's going to be inserted into the sea urchin in such a way that it will slide in between those, but not slip into the sea urchin itself. That takes a bit of time. So, constantly either testing or fit or using a pair of calipers. So if you're in a production mode of any kind, that's not really recommended.
All right. Anybody else?
You got me thinking. You got me thinking, Brian. My granddaughter loves to pick up oyster shells down here at the river, and I'm wondering if you couldn't glue them what we call back to back, so you've got 4 of them, and then put a finial and stuff on and make a nice tree ornament. So
we expect to see that from you next week.
Yeah.
No, I'm busy making wine stoppers with all kinds of stuff. I got an order from a guy at the wine store. So
well, I see Don Smith holding up something too. So Don, what do you got there?
Right. Well, this is slightly. Am I muted?
Nope. Good. You're spotlit.
You hear me? This is a sea urchin which I've made, and when I put my stem on this for a Christmas tree, this is just an ornament. On the top finial, where the large hole is, the spigot on there comes down to about 3/4 of the depth, and then there's a hole drilled in the center of that spigot. And then this base has another spigot, which has got the size of the drilled hole, so that when you put the two together, you're actually joining the base and the finial together. So you've got a whole wooden piece right through the center, holding it.
Yeah. That's certainly that. I like the concept that you've got it as a freestanding piece, and the method you use certainly works. But when I make the top and the bottom finials, I have the part that will go inside the sea urchin facing away, facing the tailstock, and I use a Jacob's chuck to drill a hole the same size as a dowel. So that way I don't have to fiddle around with making sure I make the inside hole in the top tenon fit the bottom tenon, and it's it's a 5-second handsaw cut to cut a dowel that fits. So there's holes in both of my tenons. It doesn't matter. Your way certainly seems to work.
Yeah. I drill them first. I drill the first one first and hold it.
Yeah.
And then I turn the spigot on there after I drilled it, because I've got it in the center of my chuck. And then I face that off, and the other one, of course, I finish off afterwards. So this thing is turned on with the other spigot, and you just make the one with the hole in fit over it to finish off the whole thing. So I'm not turning, the only thing I'm turning around is really not that, because I can drill this on the pillar drill, this end on the pillar drill before I start.
Very clever.
Are you with me?
Yeah. Got it.
Yeah. Well, that was just something, seeing that you've made it from a sea urchin, I thought I'd show you my freestanding one.
Cool.
Hey, Don, what's a pillow drill?
It's a drill press.
A pillar drill. It's a drill that stands on the floor. It's 6 foot tall.
It's a drill
press. You have a massive handle which turns a 18-inch platform up and down.
Yeah.
See, I used to have one of those.
A 6-inch spindle. And I am not joking. I have an industrial drill, pillar drill, which cost me £5.
Jeez.
The drill press that you bring home from the shop in your boot.
A friend of mine was going to put the sledgehammer through it, and I said, "Don't do that. I'll buy it." And he charged me £5 for the motor.
Two friendly countries separated by a.
Would you have to pay to move it?
Luckily, 4 blokes. We had to move it 100 yards. 4 blokes.
Blokes, that's what I need. I need a couple blokes near me to help move stuff. So
I'll tell you what, I'll take a photograph and I'll show you next week.
Okay.
But a pillar drill is what you have on your bench with a handle and your chuck, and you're pulling your handle down.
Okay. I thought it was something in the bedroom, a pillow drill. I didn't know what it was.
Oh, no. It's just you guys are playing with each other now. Come on.
Yes, I know we are.
We got about 2 minutes left. Randy, I see your face on there. You want it? Randy? Yeah. You're muted, my friend.
Okay. Just wanted to mention that the farm show is coming up. If anybody in the local area wants to sign up, we have a demonstration going on. It's a big deal, and we get a lot of interest in wood turning. If you want to sign up, I will send an email shortly to Mr. Wenzel, and he can forward it to the Lancaster Woodturners.
Good.
I'm at our church right now. You may hear the organ playing in the background, and we are setting up for our extravaganza, which is this weekend. So I am not at my home. But anyway, if you want to sign up as soon as possible, because we need to find out how many parking passes we need. Because when we do these events at the farm show, we do get parking passes that allow you to park for free. And I think the parking passes are parking is $15 this year.
Yeah.
So nice.
If you go ahead.
Nice Santa beard. I just had to compliment you on it.
I thought about wearing my Santa hat. Maybe I will next week.
Yeah, I'll wear my hat.
Okay. All right.
We'll have you on first next week, Bert. I'm sorry we didn't get to you today. And anybody else we didn't get to today, we'll have you on. Come back next week.
Next week, this will be gone. There's a quick story on this one. My neighbor came over. His father is a retired firefighter, and he's been recently diagnosed terminal cancer, and he's got about 2 weeks left to live. And he came over and asked if I could do something. So I made this for him. The firefighter wants to send a note to each one of his siblings or his kids. And so we made this firefighter's fire hydrant with a note cavity in it. And they're taking it, I gotta make 3 more today. I made 2 yesterday and I gotta make 3 more today because he's taking them on Friday to visit with his father who may not make it till Christmas. And that's all it is.
Did you make a big urn that size and make a big full-size one for an urn?
That would be the next thing, is to make one full size, but he needs it by Friday morning and he needs 5 of them. So for each one of the kids. So I've made 2 already. Today I'm making 3 more, and tomorrow morning he's taking them. And yeah, it's a sad story, but his father was saying what he really wanted to do was send a letter to each one of his kids. And so Jamie came over and said, can we make something that he can put the letter in? And could it be a fire hydrant, because he was a firefighter? And so that's what I came up with yesterday. And he loved it. He thinks it's absolutely perfect. And so I'm really happy to be able to make a little bit of a tough situation a little bit more palatable for the family.
Very cool.
That's all I got.
How do you make that thread?
I got a jig. I was going to do I might even make a video on making this because I learned a whole bunch on making it. But I've got a Chefware Kits threading jig, and I love it. It works great.
Yeah, that'd be an awesome demo.
Yeah, I will make a demo on that.
Cool. Thank you.
All right,
that's it.
Thank you all for another very entertaining coffee hour. We'll see you all next week. Same time, same place.
Yep. Cheers. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yep.
Bye.
Wood shop. Thank God for wood.